Thank you. Thank you, and I appreciate Amazing Grace. I thought it was highly appropriate for our second week in talking about forgiveness because, that's it. It's only through grace that we get this very important and difficult work done. I don't know, you learn all the skills, and at some point you just come right up face to face with the unearned gift of God, grace, to move through it. This is our second week, and talking about it so far, we've looked at a couple of angles. And the first angle we looked at is, forgiveness work has some benefits. The what's in it for me part is it's got health benefits. That's funny. The kind of health benefits, that it gives us the peace of mind, the sense of energy that comes when we start to make possible in our lives having loving relationships again, having the experience of having a joyful life again. And we also looked at the very real consideration of staying authentic and sincere about the hurts that happen around forgiveness and not trivializing them. Because spiritual folk can be like that, just do a spiritual bypass and say it's all lovely, say an affirmation. But no, really taking appropriate care of anger and giving appropriate expression to disappointment as a way of healing our hurts. And we also acknowledge the paradox, how forgiveness work is both powerful and extremely difficult. Because, part of the problem with forgiveness work is that it deeply offends our rational mind. How come I, the one who was hurt, get to do all the work? Yeah? It's confusing. I was remembering an article in the Utne Reader. Some of you may be Utne Reader fans. Anybody read the Utne Reader? It's just a wonderful article. It's a long time ago. There was an article called Forgiveness and Other Acts of Love by Stephanie Dowrick, and she writes about the sheer difficulty of doing this work. She says, as challenging as it is, forgiveness may be the supreme virtue, for it declares, I will attempt to go on loving the life in you, or the divine in you, or the soul in you, even when I totally abhor what you have done and what you stand for. What's more, I will attempt to see you as my equal and your life as having equal value to my own life, even when I despise what you do and everything you stand for. And she says, that is, of course, awesome to translate into practice. Oh, but in emotional terms, it's like Everest without oxygen. Wimbledon without a racket. La Scala without a score. I just love that, It's just a real honest look at the challenge of doing forgiveness work. And that's what I enjoy about our featured book of the month, Forgive for Good, written by Fred Luskin, who is an expert in forgiveness and who's coming to speak here very soon. And I've just got so much out of this little book so far, some new ideas about how to approach forgiveness. He explains how it all happens. There we are going along living our life, and then something happens that I don't like. And then what starts is a grievance process. And it continues, it lasts and lasts as long as I continue to rent too much space to the event in my mind. I really loved that. I read that and I thought, I really have to look within because I want to just figure out how much space exactly am I renting to things in my mind, and is the neighborhood inside going bad because of the occupants. We were talking about that a little bit on Wednesday night when we were dealing with one of the parables of Jesus. We were talking about the parable of the seed and the sower and how some seeds fall in thorny ground, and that's really a consciousness where there's a previous occupant, preoccupied. I hope you'll join us for this coming Wednesday. We're doing the next part of that consciousness exploration. It's really parallel work. But anyway, what is the reason why a rational person like you and me would rent so much space in our minds to hurtful events? Well, I can think of a few reasons, because what happened hurt. You know how it is when a bee stings you or you stub your toe. All your resources go right there. Hurtful events are like that. And they're important. And they're impactful. And they're deeply, deeply personal. And it's right there that we're looking at a possible place to open up and create some relief. Here's the question. What if everything wasn't as personal as I take it? Might I be less inclined to rent space in my mind if I could see the events of life as somewhat less personal, impersonal? Oh, there's a whole chapter in this book, Forgive for Good, about how to do that, not to take it personally. Well, what makes a thing personal? Well, sometimes because it's got your name on it and it's directed at you, right? But you know, there's another side of that also that's very important to consider. On one level, it's personal because I've already accepted it as so. I've already believed it. I already own what was said or done as true. Here's how it works, for example. Somebody says to me, "Hey, Edward, you're green." And I say, "Well, you know, that's not my experience. But I'm very interested to know how you came to think that way. I'd love to hear about it. I'm not bothered by it. I understand it's your experience and projection." But let's change gears now. Let's take one of those many, many things I already own. I fear it. I dread it. You know, what's yours? Do you think you're too fill in the blank? How do you complete that? Because that's the one that you own. You own it already. It's got whole subdivisions in your mind. You know, I was thinking about this when I was teaching the self-mastery class on Tuesday, and I was remembering an incident that I often use as an illustration about a visitor who came to services, and after services he came up to me and he said to me, "You know, Pastor, I don't think I can really come back here because, you know, you're just really not connected to your heart." Now, if he had said, "You're green," I wouldn't have owned it. Oh, but he talked to a place in me that is that's vulnerable because it's important, and I desperately don't want that thing that he said to be true. I owned it. Do you know what I mean? What's yours? What's your one? You know, complete the sentence. Somebody says, "Hey, you're..." And what's the thing that would touch something in you so deep and make you upset enough that you would give it all kinds of rental space in your mind? Best real estate. And there we say, and I say to the man, "You know, how dare you say what I already think?" And now I will be furious, and I will blame you and hurt. And think about it endlessly. You know, I'm thinking about Don Miguel Ruiz's beautiful little book, The Four Agreements, and it's the featured book in our class, Self-Mastery, which I hope to be teaching in the summer. I think it might be possible. I love the class because how it brings us to consider just these kind of things. Because if you're familiar with the book, you know what the second agreement is. Don't take anything personally. He says something like, you know, we take things personally because we agree with them, first of all.